Today I'm going to be talking about Taxi Season 2, episodes 9, 10, 11 and 12, and for the most part, I rather enjoyed them. There's one episode I didn't really care for. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but in general, I had a lot of fun with these. Season 2, episode 9, The Apartment. This is directed by James Burrows, and of course there will be spoilers from now as I talk about each of the episodes in turn. And this one starts off with Louie having heard from the cleaning person that somebody was living at the garage, and we quickly find out it was Latka, and he has to find somewhere to live, so he gets an apartment, this luxury apartment that kind of costs $3,000 a month. He didn't realise it was per month, so he signed this lease, but he has to stay there for the month, and it is beautiful. The set design is so fun. Every couple of seconds when we first meet the apartment, something else would be revealed, and it's brilliant fun, really gorgeous space. I think the set design was fantastic. Throughout the episode, everybody visits the apartment, they spend time there, it's a really nice environment. Towards the end of the episode, I found it to be a little bit dull, and there's a scene where there are so many people in the apartment, and I just found it to be almost overwhelming. It was too busy, and maybe that's what they were going for, but it didn't make for the most pleasant viewing experience. It might also be the biggest number of extras in a Taxi episode so far. I have no reason to think that that's definitely the case. There have been some parties and things where that might have had a similar number, but certainly we had a lot of characters here. And when Latka said goodbye to the apartment, it was actually really quite moving and quite emotional. So it was a fun episode. For me, the main appeal was definitely the design of the apartment, which is just absolutely gorgeous. So The Apartment was not a bad episode. Then we come to Season 2, Episode 10, Alex's Romance. This one's actually directed by Ed. Is this the first episode not directed by Burrows? I can't remember. Possibly, I'm not sure. Either way, really, really good episode. And we have the wonderful Dee Wallace as Joyce. Very excited. I love Dee Wallace. And Alex is introduced to Joyce, and they hit it off very well. They go back to Alex's apartment, and the performance with both of the characters is so great. It's so brilliant. It's such a funny scene, and I absolutely loved it. And I just loved the interactions between the characters. Really, really well done. And then Joyce finds out she's got an acting job, which would mean leaving. And, well, Alex decides he's going to have to ask her to marry him. They've only known each other for 2 weeks. When he said that, he said, I'm going to ask her to marry me. I thought we'd had a greater passage of time. Not for 1 second did I think it had only been 2 weeks, but we do quickly find out that it's been 2 weeks, which establishes the fact that Alex is maybe acting a little bit hastily, which is unusual because Alex is usually the voice of reason. He's usually the one who can look at things a little bit more sensibly. So I think that's quite an interesting look at his character, and it's a side of Alex we don't really see that much of, so I thought that was certainly quite fascinating. And he brings her back to his apartment, and he's going to propose, and it's just fabulous. He rigged up a bell, and when the bell rang, and it was actually Joyce who rang the bell, these violinists came out from the bedroom, I think it was the bedroom, and started playing, which in itself was funny. And then there's a cupboard, and he opens the cupboard, and just these balloons start piling out, and there were so many balloons, and they just kept on coming and coming, and they never stopped. And I absolutely loved it, and I thought it was really, really good fun. And obviously, Joyce doesn't agree to the proposal. It's not the right thing to do. And we end the episode, or towards the end of the episode, Reverend Jim actually describes life like an ice cream cone. which sounds bizarre, but actually it was really sweet, and he brought something really valuable to this, and I'm looking forward to spending more time with the character. He's quite important in an episode in a moment, and I'll discuss that in more detail, but I really liked what Jim brought to this. So Alex's Romance is certainly an interesting episode. I don't think Alex was behaving in the most sensible way, but we definitely did get to see a different side to him, a side where he's leading with his heart rather than his head, and I thought it was quite interesting, and Dee Wallace is brilliant. We then come to Season 2, Episode 11, Latka's Revolting, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and I just don't care. I'm not really a big fan of Latka. I can take him in small doses, and he often does provide comedy in small doses, but when something really focuses on the character, I have yet to care. Maybe it will happen at some point. As I said with the apartment episode at the beginning of this discussion, there were some sweet moments with Latka, but the appeal for me was the apartment. This one, I didn't really care for it. Latka's country is revolting, so he's going to go back to his country to fight. We have Lenny Baker playing somebody else from Latka's country, and they have this big send-off, and they're dancing with tablecloths, and that scene was quite good. I quite liked that scene. I thought that was rather fun, but other than that, well, actually, that's not true. There was one thing I liked about the episode. We have a sweet moment between Louie and Latka, but the bit that I genuinely liked is when they all start singing Yankee Doodle Dandy, which I love. I'm a big George M. Cohan fan, and I love that song. So that part of it, I did enjoy. And the dancing with the tablecloths was quite good fun as well. So there were some moments in this episode, but I wouldn't say I liked Latka's Revolting as an episode as a whole. But I didn't hate it. I wasn't bored. I just didn't particularly care for it. And then we come to Season 2, Episode 12, Elaine's Secret Admirer, directed, of course, by the wonderful James Burrows. And this one has some really, really sweet moments. Elaine receives an anonymous romantic poem, and Louie pretends that he is the poet, and he gives this really great dramatic performance that I absolutely loved. And then Alex finds out that Jim is the one sending them. And Jim says you can't tell her because, and I quote, she only wants to know who wrote the poems because she doesn't know who wrote the poems. Which sounds ridiculous, but actually that's a very good point. It's the mystery that's exciting. It's the unknown that's exciting. Once she finds out who the anonymous poet is, it's probably not going to be that interesting anymore. So I think Jim had a good point there. We have Dawn Reevy, played by Michael Delano, pretending that he wrote them, and Elaine believes him. Does she believe him? I don't know. I'm on the fence here. Does she actually think he's the poet? Or is she just desperate to spend time with somebody romantically that she just agreed that he was the poet? I don't know. But either way, she goes out with him, and Alex, realising that Dunn is really taking advantage of the situation, tells Elaine, I know who it is. I can't tell you, but it's not Don. And Elaine starts naming everybody in the garage. Basically, Alex will say yes if she names the person. And she names everybody and got to the end and she didn't name the person. So she said, I guess it's nobody. And it was kind of a heartbreaking moment because Jim had been hiding around the corner and he stands up and comes around the corner and says, it's nobody. Absolutely heartbreaking. And Jim obviously reveals it's him, and Elaine said, you made me realise there won't be any castles in my life. And we cut to Jim at Elaine's making her a castle. That's absolutely adorable. It was such a sweet thing, such a lovely moment. And Jim, as he leaves, he says, I'm not every woman's dreamboat. And Elaine responds, but you are the dearest, sweetest, most wonderful person. And what Jim said next honestly broke my heart a little bit, because he said, funny thing, there used to be a time when that was enough. And that broke my heart, because I think he has a very good point. And this was many, many decades ago at this point. I think it's true, probably even more so today, that being a kind, good person often isn't enough. People look for so much more in a partner. They're looking, and I'm generalising, of course, but they want somebody who's wealthy, with a good status, and in the days of social media, people are often looking for somebody with a strong online presence, and it gets ridiculous. Whereas I think Jim has a point. Why do you need somebody other than somebody who's kind and sweet? And as Lane said, the most wonderful person. That's not to say she has to have romantic feelings for him, but that should be enough. And often it's not. And it was a really, really moving and thought-provoking end to the episode. And it was a really lovely side of Jim as well, because up until this point, he had been, I want to say almost exclusively, a source of comedy. Whereas here we get to dig a little bit deeper into his personality, into the way his mind works a little bit more, and into just how kind and caring he is. And it was absolutely fabulous. So I have no complaints about this episode. I think Elaine's Secret Admirer was so sweet. If I were to rank these episodes, I'd go with... I think this one's quite easy, actually. I think it's quite easy to rank these. Elaine's Secret Admirer, my favourite. And then Alex's Romance, slightly biased because I love Dee Wallace. And then The Apartment. And then obviously Latka's Revolting down at the end there. So in general, a decent batch of episodes. Looking forward to finding out what the rest of season 2 of Taxi has in store.